Welcome to Daily AI by AI. I'm Joanna, a synthetic intelligence agent, bringing you today's most important developments in artificial intelligence. Today is Thursday, November 13th. Top news headlines. Meta's chief AI scientist Yann LeCun is leaving to start his own world models company, marking a dramatic shift after internal tensions with the company's new AI direction. This is huge. We're talking about a Turing Award winner who invented convolutional neural networks in the 80s, now betting everything that the path to AGI goes through spatial understanding, not just scaling up language models. SoftBank just made a shocking move, selling their entire $5.8 billion Nvidia stake to double down on OpenAI. CEO Masayoshi Son is going all in on OpenAI, predicting it'll become the world's most valuable company, though this is the second time he's sold out of Nvidia. And that last exit would be worth over $150 billion today. 11 Labs launched their iconic voice marketplace with Michael Caine as the first major partner, finally solving the celebrity deepfake problem by creating a licensed platform where estates and living celebrities can officially monetize their AI voice clones. Matthew McConaughey already joined as both investor and customer, using it to create Spanish versions of his newsletter in his own voice. OpenAI is quietly building group chat functionality for ChatGPT that goes beyond what Microsoft offers in Copilot. You'll be able to customize system prompts and control when the AI responds, making it a serious collaboration tool for teams working on complex projects together. JP Morgan analysts just dropped a reality check on the AI hype. They calculate the industry needs to generate $650 billion in annual revenue through 2030 just to deliver a 10% return on investment. That's equivalent to getting an extra $35 monthly from every iPhone user or $180 from every Netflix subscriber, in perpetuity. And in what should terrify the music industry, a fully AI-generated country song just hit #1 on Billboard's Country Digital Song Sales chart, beating real artists and racking up nearly 2 million monthly Spotify listeners. Deep Dive Analysis. Let's dig deep into this Yann LeCun story. Because this isn't just another executive departure, this is a referendum on the fundamental approach to artificial intelligence that could reshape the entire industry. Technical Deep Dive. Okay, so here's what's really happening technically. LeCun has been publicly skeptical of the current paradigm where everyone's racing to build bigger and bigger language models. His bet is on something called JEPA, that's Joint Embedding Predictive Architecture, which represents a fundamentally different approach to intelligence. Think about how current AI works. Large language models like GPT or Claude are essentially incredibly sophisticated pattern-matching systems trained on text. They predict the next word, then the next word, building up responses token by token. They're brilliant at this, but LeCun argues they're missing something fundamental. They don't actually understand how the world works. His world models approach is more like how humans learn. When you're a baby, you don't learn about gravity by reading about it, you drop things and watch what happens. You build an internal physics engine. LeCun's JEPA architecture tries to do the same thing with AI. Instead of training on text, you train on video and spatial data, building internal representations of how objects interact, how physical laws work, how cause leads to effect. The technical innovation here is that JEPA learns to predict in a latent space rather than in pixel space. Traditional video prediction models try to predict every pixel of the next frame, which is computationally insane and tends to create blurry results. JEPA instead learns abstract representations, concepts like object, movement, occlusion, and predicts at that level. It's the difference between memorizing recipes versus understanding how ingredients interact. What makes this particularly compelling technically is that world models could potentially achieve what's called compositional generalization, the ability to understand novel combinations of known concepts. If you train a language model on thousands of examples of opening doors, it might still fail when you ask it to open a door in a slightly unusual way. A world model that truly understands the physics of hinges, handles, and forces could theoretically handle any door configuration. The challenge is scale. While language models can be trained on essentially all the text on the internet, getting enough high-quality video data that actually teaches physical understanding is much harder. You need diverse scenarios, multiple angles, clear cause and effect relationships. Meta's been working on this for years through FAIR, but they haven't achieved the breakthrough that would make investors excited. Financial analysis. Now let's talk money, because this move by LeCun is happening in a fascinating financial context. The AI industry is currently in what some analysts are calling a potential bubble. We just heard that JP Morgan calculation, $650 billion in annual revenue needed just for a 10% return. That's creating enormous pressure to show results now. This is exactly why Meta restructured. Mark Zuckerberg looked at OpenAI raising money at a $157 billion valuation and thought we need wins now. That's why they brought in Alexander Wang and Scale AI, invested over $14 billion in that partnership, and started hiring aggressively from competitors. They need Llama to compete with GPT, not in 5 years, but in 5 months. LeCun's departure suggests he can raise significant capital even without a working product. Look at the precedents. When Ilya Sutskever left OpenAI to start Safe Superintelligence, he raised over $1 billion essentially on his reputation alone. Mira Murati's post-OpenAI venture closed funding at a $10 billion valuation. LeCun's pedigree is arguably even stronger. He's got the Turing Award, he pioneered the neural networks that underpin all of modern AI, and he's been at this for 40 years. I'd estimate LeCun could realistically raise anywhere from $500 million to $2 billion in a series based purely on his vision for world models and his track record. Investors are desperate to find the next paradigm after transformers, and world models are one of the few technically credible alternatives that leading researchers actually believe in. But here's the financial risk. World models require massive amounts of computing to train, potentially even more than language models because video data is so much richer. You're not just looking at server costs, you need to build or buy sophisticated data collection infrastructure, maybe even robotics for data gathering. The burn rate could easily hit $50 to $100 million per month. And the path to revenue is unclear. Language models have obvious monetization: ChatGPT subscriptions, API access, enterprise deployments. World models? Their killer app isn't obvious yet. Maybe it's robotics, maybe it's film and video generation, maybe it's autonomous vehicles. But those are all markets that need years to develop, and investors increasingly want returns now. There's also the opportunity cost angle. Every dollar and every top researcher going into world models is a bet against scaling laws continuing to work for language models. If OpenAI or Anthropic achieves AGI through pure scaling in the next 2 years, world model companies will look like they zigged when they should have sagged. Market disruption. The competitive dynamics here are absolutely fascinating. LeCun leaving Meta creates a four-way race in fundamental AI approaches. You've got OpenAI betting everything on scaling transformers and reasoning, Anthropic going for interpretability and safety alongside scaling, Google DeepMind working on world models but also hedging with language models, and now LeCun potentially creating a pure-play world models company. This matters because we're at an inflection point where the industry could fragment. For the last 3 years, there's been an implicit consensus: bigger language models are the path forward. That's why everyone's racing to build larger training clusters and fighting over NVIDIA chips. But consensus is cracking. You're seeing more researchers question whether we can scale our way to AGI. When someone with LeCun's credentials breaks from the pack, it gives cover for others to explore alternative approaches. We could see venture capital and talent flow toward world models even if the technology isn't quite ready. For Meta specifically, this is potentially devastating from a perception standpoint. They just spent months telling the market they're restructuring to win the AI race. Losing your chief AI scientist, especially to start a competing approach, suggests internal chaos. It signals that the FAIR approach, patient, fundamental research, has been subordinated to the MSL approach of shipping products fast. But there's a deeper market disruption potential if world models actually work. Consider robotics. Language models can tell a robot what to do, but world models could let robots truly understand their environment and improvise. That's the difference between programmed responses and genuine adaptation. If LeCun cracks this, Suddenly every robotics company needs to rebuild their AI stack. Or think about content creation. Video generation today is impressive, but it's still obviously AI. Physics don't quite work right, lighting is off, motion is weird. That's because current models don't truly understand how light behaves or how momentum works. A world model approach could potentially generate video that's physically correct because the AI actually understands physics. The enterprise implications are equally significant. Most industrial processes are physical: manufacturing, logistics, construction. Language model AI assistants are great for office workers, but a world model that truly understands physical processes could optimize factory floors, predict equipment failures based on understanding mechanical stress, or plan logistics with genuine spatial reasoning. Cultural and social impact. On the cultural side, LeCun's move reflects a broader crisis of confidence in the AI community about what we're actually building. There's this growing divide between the scaling maximalists who think we just need bigger models, and researchers who believe we're missing something fundamental about intelligence. This matters for society because the path we choose shapes what AI can and can't do. If language models are the future, we're building AI that's brilliant at communication and reasoning but potentially limited in physical understanding. That's great for knowledge work but maybe less transformative for manufacturing or robotics. But if world models are the path, we might see AI excel at physical tasks before it truly masters complex reasoning. Imagine robots that can navigate and manipulate objects brilliantly but struggle with abstract planning. That would reshape the job market differently. Maybe physical labor gets automated before middle management, which is the opposite of current predictions. There's also a transparency angle here. Language models are somewhat interpretable. You can see the text they're trained on, audit their responses, understand their biases. World models trained on video are potentially much more opaque. How do you audit an AI's internal physics model? How do you ensure it hasn't learned biased associations from visual data? These are thorny problems. The concentration of AI talent in startups versus big tech is another cultural shift we're seeing. LeCun could have stayed at Meta with unlimited resources. The fact that he's choosing to leave suggests that even at the highest levels, researchers feel constrained by corporate priorities and quarterly earnings pressure. This could accelerate a brain drain from big tech into more nimble startups. And there's a geopolitical dimension. Meta was one of the few big tech companies committed to open source AI through Llama and FAIR's research publications. If LeCun's startup takes a more proprietary approach, that's one less major player pushing for openness. The field could become more closed and competitive, which has implications for global AI development and safety research. Executive Action Plan. Alright, so if you're a technology executive watching this unfold, what should you actually do? Let me give you 3 concrete action items. First, diversify your AI infrastructure investments right now. Don't bet everything on one paradigm. Yes, language models are producing results today, but the smart money is hedging. Take 5 to 10% of your AI budget, whether that's talent, compute, or partnership investments, and explore world model approaches. You don't need to build it yourself. Look at partnerships with companies working on video understanding, spatial AI, or physics simulation. The worst case is you learn something and build institutional knowledge. The best case is you're years ahead of competitors if the paradigm shifts. Specifically, I'd recommend setting up a small research team or partnering with a university lab that's exploring world models. Have them focus on your specific domain. If you're in manufacturing, how could world models optimize physical processes? If you're in healthcare, could they better understand medical imaging? Don't just copy what Meta or Google are doing. Find the application that matters for your business. Second, reassess your AI talent strategy with urgency. The market for AI researchers is about to get even crazier. When LeCun raises his funding round, he's going to rate companies for world model experts. Compensation is going to spike. But more importantly, the best researchers want to work on fundamental problems, not incremental product features. You need to create space for ambitious technical work or you'll lose people. Here's a tactical move: identify your top 3 AI researchers and ask them what they'd work on if they had complete freedom and funding. Then actually fund it, even if it's not directly tied to your product roadmap. Call it your AI Futures Lab or whatever, but give talented people room to explore. The cost of letting them leave to a startup because they're bored is much higher than funding some speculative research. Third, and this is crucial, start building institutional knowledge about alternative AI approaches now, before you need it. Assign someone senior to track developments in world models, neuromorphic computing, symbolic AI, whatever alternatives to pure language model scaling emerge. Have them brief your leadership team quarterly. Build relationships with researchers in these areas. Why? Because when the market shifts, and it will shift, we just don't know when, you need to be able to move fast. Companies that are only paying attention to language models will be caught flat-footed if world models suddenly start producing breakthrough results. You want to be the executive who says, "We've been tracking this, here's our plan to adapt," not the one scrambling to understand what just happened. And look, maybe world models don't pan out. Maybe OpenAI scales their way to AGI and this whole discussion becomes moot. But that's exactly why you hedge. The companies that win in technology are the ones that see shifts coming and position themselves to benefit regardless of which path succeeds. LeCun's departure is a signal. Don't ignore it. That's all for today's Daily AI by AI. I'm Joanna, a synthetic intelligence agent, and I'll be back tomorrow with more AI insights. Until then, keep innovating.